Hey there, I hope you're doing well. I'm Shawna, your counseling astrologer, and this is your Astro Psyche forecast for the week of July 18th. So this week is all about your empowerment journey. We have some aspects that involve Pluto, which is a bit intense, but very rich for gaining empowerment, and a last quarter moon, and then some other things involving Jupiter as well. So I'm excited to share the astrology of this week with you, and I have 3 tips for you to make the most out of this week. So the first aspect that's happening that I think is the most, that we'll be feeling the most, that might be the most challenging one, is we'll have Mercury and the Sun in Cancer opposite Pluto. So this is kind of known to be a toughie as far as transits go, because Pluto intensifies things. Pluto requires and asks us to go really deep into the core root of an issue. Pluto is also associated with crises, with pain and suffering and guilt and shame, and even trauma to a certain extent. So all of these states that are a bit tough for us, but when we work with it, we all experience these things, and when we go into them, Pluto, we can actually facilitate healing and empowerment. So what's connecting us into Pluto this week is Mercury, so the mind, thought process, and communication. Both verbal communication as well as nonverbal communication, and the Sun. Sun is a symbol of your ego, your conscious willpower, but also your spirit and your own unique soul identity, whatever that means to you. It's like that part of you that animates you, that is intangible or unseen. So both Mercury and the Sun are in Cancer. They're going to oppose Pluto. And so this is a great time for really watching what comes up for you this week as far as uncomfortable situations. And I'll have more information for you in the tips on this, on how to handle that. So shortly after that, Mercury and the Sun will move into Leo this week, so that will usher in Leo season as well. So the early in the week, it may feel a bit intense, emotionally sensitive, and then there's a bit of a shift midweek when Mercury and the Sun move into Leo. Part of this shift is that we also have a last quarter moon in Aries. It's about 27 degrees Aries on either Wednesday or Thursday this week, the 20th or the 21st, depending on where you are in the world. And so a last quarter moon in Aries is about really dialing in your efforts and really focusing yourself on what is important to you, Aries. The last quarter can feel kind of like there's challenges or blocks, or things aren't necessarily, it can kind of create like a crossroads kind of situation, like we talked about with the first quarter moon. But in this case, usually it feels more like your path is already defined. And so I want you to really be gentle with yourself, notice what challenges come up. And when we're talking about last quarter moon in Aries, it is about finding the path of least resistance and finding what is going to give you the most immediate result. And only you know what that is like, you know, what works for you, but that's really the vibe that's going on here, because we're preparing for the new moon later this month. So later this month, we'll have a new moon in Leo. So that's happening Thursday, the 28th of July. It's going to be exact at 10:55 a.m. Pacific time. So that's a date to note. And then if you're interested in working with the lunar cycles, you can join my New Moon Circle. I'm actually hosting a New Moon Circle the Saturday before to really channel in some of the Jupiterian energy so that we can prepare for this really cool lunar cycle. I love the moon in Leo. I love the new moon in Leo, so I'm excited to work with that. If you want to find out more about the New Moon Circle, I'll have a link below to my website. Okay, so The cool aspect that I think is going to feel sort of like rejuvenating after we work through some of this Pluto stuff earlier in the week is that this weekend we'll have Mercury trine Jupiter, and then we'll also have Venus square Jupiter. So both aspects to Jupiter, and we have Mercury, which is our thought process, right? Our communication skills, our mental processing as well. And then Venus, which is relationships. So this to me, both of these aspects together with Jupiter bring a sense of ease and openness, and really a sense of creativity and support for divination, for connection with the divine, for any sort of creative or spiritual pursuits. And I'm saying this because Mercury is a ruler of divination and intuition. It's not just our logical mind, but it's also our connection to symbolic and synchronicity. And then Jupiter really has this opening sort of effect. So I would, again, just say, yeah, like hang in there. The weekend's going to feel a lot lighter and easier. Venus square Jupiter can sometimes be a little bit of a tension or a bit of needing to decide between our values, Venus, and all of the possibilities, Jupiter. So just, watch out for that, but it definitely feels a lot lighter. Now, I have 3 tips for you. So first tip is to notice where you feel defensive or agitated or sad. Notice when, where, how those sort of feelings come up for you. And this is going to help you process and transmute the situations that come up around Pluto and Mercury and the Sun being opposite Pluto. This is super important. I don't want you to focus on like changing these feeling states. I just want you to notice and sort of be like, oh, like I'm feeling really angry, or I'm feeling really like irked by this situation or this person or whatever, and just kind of like let it be there and notice it. And I promise you that noticing is what actually transmutes the feeling state. Tip number 2 is to stay true to your values. So this is super important whenever we're working with a Sun-Pluto aspect, whether that's in your birth chart or in your transits or in the transits of the week. Sun-Pluto is really about your empowerment process and claiming what it is that is true for you, and not letting anyone tell you how it is for you or what your feelings or what your values are. So that's tip number 2, to stay very true to your values. Tip number 3 is to focus on your inner experience. And so what I mean by that is I want you to really focus on your feelings and your response to things, and to avoid trying to control other people's feelings or behaviors. That's another part of Sun-Pluto happening here, is that sometimes with that aspect, Sun-Pluto, we can either feel like people are trying to control us, or we can unconsciously try to control others, or simply feel responsible for others in an exaggerated fashion. So stay focused on your own internal experience, and that is where the transmutation and the transformational process happens. We work through all of these ideas and processes with your personal birth chart when I do an astrology reading for you. So we would get into where and how this happens and how we see that playing out in your birth chart. So if you're interested in a reading with me, that is definitely something that I offer and would love to do. You can find out more information on my website below. So last part is I pulled a tarot card for you beforehand. I pulled the 2 of Pentacles, and this is like a decision point card. So 2 of Pentacles is where you're kind of like juggling things, and that may be a part of the last quarter moon phase here too, where there needs to be a pruning process or a decision point to go one way or another. I feel like we had decision point last week as well. So maybe it's a continuation of that process. All right, I hope this was useful for you. I love your comments and likes on my videos. Please leave me a comment and let me know how this resonated for you. I always love hearing from you. I'm sending you lots of love and wishing you lots of blessings this week.